this week is, I think, according to the annual cycle, it's Hazinu, right? And according to the triennial cycle, there's a little bit of confusion going on. I was told that currently it's suspended or something like that, and they're going to start again with Bereshis when everybody starts Bereshis. But even then, it'll get out of whack because the next week everybody's going to be doing Noah, and the triennial people are going to be doing the second Parsha of Bereshis, just the second chapter of the whole book. So stay tuned for more information regarding that. The Shulchan Aruch talks about the laws of Neilah, because Yom Kippur is when? Someone remind everybody. So Yom Kippur is Sunday night, right? Okay. So we saw recently the laws of. We saw that women sometimes have to tour not to fast, especially 20th century rabbis. The main point that should be seen in the previous video was that the Shulchan Aruch says that women who are pregnant and nursing are supposed to fast in Yom Kippur. That's the basic obligation. That's the way it's in the Gemara. It's a quote from Rava. That's where the Rambam has it. That's what you can find in the codes. In the 20th century, there were already those who were taken apart. I mentioned the psak of Rav Fisher, of Yisrael Yaakov Fisher, 20th century posek, and chaver of the Bedats. So he said, basically, from the statistics he's seen, that it causes women to miscarry. That's already not good. So all women should already be eating shiurim and drinking shiurim on Yom Kippur. That's what we said about pregnant women. And that psak, by Rav Tzuriel points out, was signed on by the other members of the Beis Din, Rav Brandsdorfer and Rav Halberstam, if you know who they are. Mm-hmm. So we're not talking lightweights here. And we're talking about the Bedats. The Bedats, they're, at least with regards to kashrus, they're supposed to be the most machmir. So this is the most basic psak, and he doesn't mince words. It's pretty short. He's written in a few places. You could find it in the usual sfarim. Rav Tzuriel addressed this, Rabbi Nachum Rabinovich addressed this issue, but while they were not as lenient as Rav Fisher was, they were still quite much more lenient than the Shulchan Aruch, for example. So go check that out. That's an important thing to make note of. That was the first thing we said. And then we said, we looked at Hilchos Neilah. So this is Siman Taf Reish Kaf Gimel, which would be Mark 623 in Bar-Hayim. Article 2 says the time for saying Neilah is when the sun is at the tops of the trees. Notice how the Shulchan Aruch is using this expression which is found in the Talmud. And the Talmud doesn't say Plag Mincha, right? We generally ask, so when is Neilah time as opposed to Mincha time? Mincha basically is every afternoon from half an hour after Chatzos until sundown, correct? Mm-hmm. So Neilah overlaps at that. The way the Rambam says, yeah, it's also supposed to be late in the day, and you're supposed to end it, with Shkia Sachama. It has the same cutoff point as Mincha, but the starting point is significantly later. So they generally say around Plag because that's when the sun is at the tops of the trees if you're looking at the horizon. Fine. It gives you about an hour or so to say Neilah. This is an important point. In years past, the Mishnah Berurah brings a chumrah of the Achronim that we treat Birkas Kohanim like the Avodah on the Beis Hamikdash, which also had to come to an end by sundown. So no Birkas Kohanim after sundown. But sometimes you're davening the Neilah and you get to the end of the Shemon Esrei and it's approaching sundown. So they basically give a cutoff line. That's not a Talmudic rule. You're not going to find in Talmudic rule no Birkas Kohanim if they start in Shemon Esrei before sundown. But then if you cross the sundown line, now you can't have Birkas Kohanim when you're supposed to have Birkas Kohanim. However, what is clear from the halacha, like we just said, is really what you're supposed to finish davening mincha by sundown. You're supposed to finish davening Neilah by sundown, which means not just the silent Shemon Esrei, but also Chazaras HaShatz. Every single day of the year, mincha should not go past sundown, right? So forget about Birkas Kohanim being after sundown. The davening itself shouldn't go past sundown. That's a very important point. You want to finish Shemon Esrei. Minhag Ashkenaz in Chutz La'aretz is not like this. They'll start Neilah late in the day. The sun will go down during Chazaras HaShatz because right as Chazaras HaShatz comes to an end, all they have is Avinu Malkeinu, which is 2 pages. You can't extend Avinu Malkeinu, and that's Kaddish Kabul Shofar and Mariv. So that's usually taking you to Tseis. So the sun has gone down a good half hour before you got to the end of Shemon Esrei, at least the way we used to daven Neilah in Chutz La'aretz. But then the reintroduction in Eretz Yisrael to Ashkenazim of Birkas Kohanim suddenly brought this issue to the fore. And suddenly they're saying, well, we need to finish Shemon Esrei. We need to get to the end of Shemon Esrei before Birkas Kohanim, before the sun goes down. So let's put a move on it. Yeah, but you were supposed to put a move on it just for the Shmon Esrei itself, for the Chazar Sashatz. That's the din. Okay, fine. Wait a minute. So let's say you want to take your art scroll machzer, your Rinat Yisrael machzer, your burn bound machzer, and you want to adjust it such that now you're going to finish the Chazar Sashatz of Neilah before sundown, or just at sundown. Wait, so the sun went down, you finished the Chazar Sashatz, there's nothing left to say. There's just Avinu Malkeinu. You've seen this problem? Think about it. Yeah, you take out your art scroll machzer, or your burn bound as it is, and you basically, if you finish the Shmona Esrei just about sundown, you now have a good half hour to burn, I guess, of Yom Kippur, and all that's left in the service is Avinu Malkeinu. So what do you do?
That's where they should just say what you've seen.
At that point? What do you do at that point? You finish Shmona Esrei. What?
Just fill it up with random stuff. So.
Fill it up with random stuff. That's it. Filler prayer.
Yeah, filler.
That's ridiculous. That's so not what prayer is supposed to be. You need heartfelt prayers, but the problem is you prayed everything in the entire machzer.
The danger is that maybe people who are not so knowledgeable say, "Oh, it's over. The tefillah is over, so we can go home and eat."
I know. So you have to stay in shul. The sun just went down. You have Tosefes Yom Kippur now. You can't sound the shofar. You can't start Marav just yet. People want to get what do you call it? You want to start Marav after say so you can get the Smicha Gula with the tefillah. You want to say proper Marav, and you can't sound the shofar until people go home.
Improper Marav.
So you know what they do? And this I've seen, and this is something that is against what the Shulchan Aruch says, and I'll show you what already we were taught 23 years ago. Okay. What they do is they say Avinu Malkeinu line by line responsively, really slowly.
For 30 minutes?
Or 25, whatever it may be. There are places that do that. There's right across the street they do that. So I had taught already, I remember Rabbi Hammer, who I mentioned now also last week, taught us already, just do like the Shulchan Aruch itself says. What's the opinion of the Beis Yosef? I'll read the Beis Yosef and I'll explain it. The Shliach Tzibur should, cut short all the psukim and the slichos that are in the tefillah. He's talking about the tefillah, that means the Chazar Sashatz, because he's talking about the Shliach Tzibur. V'gam ein lo limshoch b'tfilat lila kol teva v'tiva kederech shemosech b'shar tefilot. He shouldn't pull out drag out every single word of the tefillah. Remember, tefillah is Chazar Sashatz, like he does the other ones. Gedei sheigmor kodem shkiyat hachama. Okay, so that he should finish the prayer, the Neilah, before the sun sets, like the din is. Wait a minute. So he's Lekatzer Slichos and Psukim during the Chazar Sashatz, but they're in there. No, say them after Chazar Sashatz. Like the Sfardim do. The Sephardic minhag, like you could find in any place around here, is they will finish the Shmona Esrei of Neilah, the Chazar Sashatz, right around sundown. And in the intervening time, they'll say that whole order of Slichos, which they say after every Shmona Esrei of Yom Kippur. They have enough Slichos, and their timing is perfect. So that's what the rabbi told us, and they do in some places. They take that body of slichos, which, by the way, how often are slichos said during Chazar Sashatz? Never, except for in the Neilah of Yom Kippur. If you ever have slichos, they're either said before Shachris, as their own service, or after Shachris's Chazar Sashatz, right?
Different minhagim. Some do it more.
What?
Some people do it in more tefillot.
During the Chazar Sashatz? Yeah, it's not minhag Ashkenaz. Where have you been? I haven't seen that. Italy is not Ashkenaz. Italy is its own.
You were talking just about.
I was talking about Ashkenaz.
Okay.
The traditional Yerushalmi Sephardic way of doing this is that, and you can look at this at all their machzorim, slichas are said after Chazar Sashatz. Slichas in the morning, like today, was before Shachris. And slichas of Yom Kippur is said after the Chazar Sashatz. So they're going to daven Marav Yom Kippur night, and then they're going to have slichas. Shachris, Chazar Sashatz, slichas. They're going to have Musaf Chazar Sashatz, slichas. That's what they're going to have. So that's what the Beis Yosef is basically saying. Take the slichas and say them after the Shmona Esrei, and that's what Rabbi Hammer taught us to do. And it's very simple. It's kind of a pele that in your art scroll and your Birnbaum and your Rinat Yisrael Machzers, or that new Haredi one, the Philosinu one that I just got a copy. So they have the slichos of Neilah in Chazar Sashatz. So take them out of Chazar Sashatz and say them afterwards. And then when you finish your Chazar Sashatz just about sunset, and you were going to be waiting half an hour before you sound the shofar, that's when you say the slichas and Avinu Malkeinu, and you don't have to make it unnaturally dragged out. Take it. I remember seeing this. It was two pages of Avinu Malkeinu. How slow can you say it They rush through Shemona Esrei and Tzlichos, and then they say Avinu Malkeinu so slowly. Yeah, I know, a lot of kavana, but still, no one talks that way. It's inhuman. It doesn't make any sense. So that's what basically Shulchan Aruch says to do, and that's what you can do. That's perhaps what you should do. Remember, Minhag Ashkenaz of Chutz La'aretz was not meant for Eretz Yisrael. They were assuming, one, that there was no Birkas Kohanim, and two, that they weren't holding of this din that the Chazaras Hashatz should end at Shkia. Otherwise, they would have nothing to do. Okay, so that's that Shulchan Aruch there.
It's also with the Shitat Rambam that Netilat Apayim is Yom Kippur is after each Tefillah.
Yeah, you're supposed to say, like the Rambam says, Yom Kippur, it's full of Nefilas Apayim, Tachanunim and Nefilas Apayim. That's when we said, and we're going to speak about this more in Yom Kippur itself. It's strange. The Rambam assumes that there's a lot of Tachanun on Yom Kippur. That's what the Slichos are. And therefore, there's supposed to be a lot of falling down on the floor. A lot of Nefilas Apayim. If Tachanun and Nefilas Apayim are synonymous, they go hand in hand. So it's kind of strange that in, let's say, most synagogues today, they do bow down on the floor on Yom Kippur a few times, but they only do it as a reenactment, and they do it during a piyut, and they don't say any actual tachanunim at that point. Strange, right? Yeah. Okay. What are you going to do?
We would like to encourage our viewers to share these videos with friends and send in your responses. If you would like to obtain Birkon Nusach Eretz Yisrael or invite the rabbi for a speaking engagement, please email us at office@machonshilo.org.